So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today I'm here all on my own, very sad I know, because I'm doing my debrief of my experience at UK Games Expo. And Grant wasn't able to make it to that trip. It was more of a kind of a coincidence that I was able to go. I was over in the UK for my sister's wedding, and I was going to be there about a week and a half, see my family and stuff, and then my brother was like, oh, stay an extra couple of days, go to the Games Expo. And I'm like, how often is that going to happen? So just kind of went for it, and then we did it. So it was kind of the last 2 days of my trip. I was there Friday and Saturday, so I did 2 days there. I flew out on Sunday morning. So it's kind of a whirlwind. But if you don't know, the UK Games Expo, it's a very large board gaming convention. Think about it kind of like Origins Game Fair, or not quite as big as, it's not nearly as big as Gen Con, but Gen Con style. People compare it to Essen, but Essen's a little bit different. But it's one of these big, massive get-togethers where there's, huge vendor halls with all sorts of, publishers and designers and artists and resellers and all sorts of different events demoing new games. They had tournaments going on of games. There's a huge kind of bring and buy flea market type thing that was awesome. So it's huge. It's held at the NEC in Birmingham, which is massive, and I'd never been there before, so that was also kind of a new experience for me going there and kind of seeing that, and just kind of wanted to go through what that was like. So I'm pretty sure that it's not a stretch to say that I think that's the UK's biggest kind of gaming convention. At least board gaming convention, let's say that. I'm pretty sure, without question, that Essen is bigger. But from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Essen is very much a trade fair. It's just kind of for like buying and selling stuff and things like that. There's less space in the convention itself for playing the games and doing events and things like that. People do it all kind of outside in the hotels and stuff, but I'm pretty sure, from my understanding, it's kind of like you go there, buy all the new games, and then go home and play. Which I felt like UK Games Expo had, there was some free space to kind of play at, and you could sit down and demo lots of different things, and there was more than just buying stuff, although I did some of that. Bearing in mind also that I had flown to the UK, so I didn't buy like a lot of stuff. There was a lot of cool games there and things that I was interested in, but there's just no feasible way for me to bring that home or to ship it. Would be, in an inordinate amount of money, and I wasn't going to do it. So there were things there that I kind of wrote down that I'm like, yep, I'll pick that up at Gen Con because it'll be there later on in the year, which is kind of 40 minutes down the road from us. So it's much more convenient for me to do that. So on day one, I went there, kind of drove up on my own, and kind of potted around a little bit and met up with my brother and his family who were there. But the things that I would say is getting to the NEC right off the motorway, super mega convenient. And then park up the car, and then there's a little bus shuttle service to take you to the front door, which I didn't know about, so I walked. It's about a 15-minute, 20-minute walk. So wait for the bus and do that. But it's all very efficiently done. And then you kind of go in. The line for the ticket, so I didn't pre-book any tickets, so to buy my tickets to kind of just get in, there was a very long line, lots of kind of snaking back and forth, but in true, British fashion, it was extremely efficient, and they had a lot of people at the desk, and I was in line for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and there was, easily probably 1,000 people when I joined the line. It went very, very quickly, all things considered. I've waited in much longer, much slower lines at other conventions, is what I would say. So I was really happy about that, because I arrived, I think it was like 10, maybe it was 9:20 when I got there, like into the front door, and then I got in line, and 9:40 I was in the convention, which was really neat. And it was very, very similar, what I would say, very similar to Gen Con. Where you just kind of walk into Hall 1, and it's just rows and rows of booths back and forth. So it was just really fun being in that scene again, seeing all of the different vendors who were there, all the different things that were available. And what was nice is, having done all the US stuff, well, at least a good chunk of it, it was nice to see some of the kind of the smaller, UK or European companies, which just, you don't get a lot of that cross-pollination because it's very expensive to travel transatlantic and haul all your stuff and set up for a convention. So, it was nice to see different dice manufacturers or different game companies that you don't get such a large presence at the conventions that we attend, generally speaking. So it was really nice from that standpoint. Played a couple games kind of with my little nieces and nephews who were there. That was fun. Hung out in like the Harbour family area. Had some good food. There were lots of food trucks there. That was nice. And then I headed over to... there's a little bit of wargaming. Not a ton. But the parts that were there were very good. So there was a group who were playing... what's it called? Bolt Action from Warlord Games, and they had these incredible tables set up. One of them was Breakout Manor, which you'll know from Band of Brothers, where they assault those the 88mm guns that are all in place that are firing onto the beaches. So it's like that exact thing, and you're playing that scenario, and it was drop-in, and you could do it for charity. There's some amazing pictures. Maybe I'll show those on the screen. But I met Alex from Storms of Steel Wargaming. He's a wargaming, kind of a miniatures wargaming YouTuber. He's really good. Love him. His content's great. But it was very nice to finally meet you in person. That was chill. Plus the tables and the miniatures were gorgeous. Like, shamefully good, frankly. And they were doing it for a nice cause, which was really awesome to see. Then I went down to Hall 1, met the guys at Phalanx, who are just the nicest dudes. I was kind of walked through Brett Valder, which we're going to play here coming up pretty soon. Although, depending on when this video comes out, you may have already seen us preview that. That's kind of a Saxon-era game about control of kind of England, and it looks very cool, and it's on a timer, so to speak. So it's not one of those games that just, like, it looks like it plays well, and then it takes, like, 7 hours. It's a very clipped and well managed game from what it looks like. James Buckley, who works for them, he took me aside and we played an upcoming game of theirs called... Alright, let me get this right. It's Iron, Blood, Snow and Mud, I think. If it's not, it is a combination of those 4 words. And it's a 2-player tactical... East Front game. We kind of sat down and did a little kind of 5-minute video afterwards. It's very loud, so that's coming later on. But that game was so cool because it's very low counter density, very small hex board, but it's East Front kind of Barbarossa, and you have so few units, and the way that the units work and combat's resolved, it is so thinky and puzzly, but it takes an hour. It's a very short game in that sense, so you have time to think and puzzle over it, and it doesn't stretch the game from, an 8-hour game to a 12-hour game. It's this really tight little puzzle. I'm very excited for that game, and hopefully more in that series, because it fits a really nice niche where you can really wrestle with the maneuvering and stuff. That was a very fun game as well that they had on display, which I really appreciated them showing me that. And then just kind of very near to where Phalanx were, Nuts Publishing was there. We've played a number of Nuts' games over the years, and met Florent, who owns Nuts Publishing. Super nice guy. Just one of the friendliest people I've ever met in wargaming. No offense to anyone else, but he was just so excited to show me, things that they had upcoming. And they had a bunch of their stuff kind of previously, a few weeks earlier at PunchedCon, which is much more wargaming focused. And so he was remiss that he didn't know I was going to be there, which is my own fault. But he was like, oh, I don't have all my stuff. Because they can only bring so much, and they brought more non-wargamey type stuff. But he was showing me all of their kind of upcoming games in the kind of the 300 series. It's got a bunch of games coming up for that, so I'll show some pictures of those. Very, very interesting. showing me their We're Coming Nineveh, which is Battle of Mosul game that's coming up soon as well. That looks really good. Very interesting as well. And then he, showed me some projects they got coming on in the future of different translations of French games that they've designed and things they're doing in the future as well. Some of which just look incredible. Their production value, they're already ramping up and making that a hallmark of their company, which I really appreciate as well. It's nice to have a nice war game, but it's also nice to have a war game that looks good too. And there's no reason that they shouldn't, as long as it's, still readable and functional, which those ones are that he showed me. So that was really nice. And then that night, so I basically spent the whole afternoon, late afternoon with those guys, bouncing back and forth. And then, met Scott, who designed This Wall Without an Enemy, which is on this shelf. You can't see it, and I've got the big map posted up on my wall, which you can't see as well. But after the convention closes at 6, we all got together, and then they do kind of a pub crawl, because I had to go back to my accommodation. I just went to the first stop, which was this nice little kind of Indian pub restaurant type place, and it was just really nice to hang out with everyone, get some good food, have some good chat, and meet a lot of these people that we talk to through emails or designer interviews, and just to kind of hang out and on a more personal level. It was such a fun night, strolling through Birmingham, trying to find my way back to the train station, having never been there before. A couple of people asked me, they asked me for directions. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I have no idea what I'm doing. So apologies to those random people on the street that I may have pointed in the right direction, or just went like, this way, and pointed to everywhere. So I got home really late. I stayed at my sister's house, and she lived a little bit further away than I thought she did. But I crashed with my sister because on the Saturday, my sister and one of my other brothers came as well. So it was kind of like a lot of my family back home play board games. And so it was nice to kind of like one last hurrah whilst I was there to get like a bunch of us together to the Games Expo. And I tried to do a lot of the kind of like Player's Aid stuff, so to speak, on that Friday, so that I could just kind of hang out with my family. I didn't need to have like the pressures of like, I've got to go and like do this interview and like, tell my family to sod off. Don't want to do that. So it was, I timed most of it pretty well. But on that second day, I bought a bunch of dice, which is the important part. So there's a company called Dice Goblin from the UK, and they just had some really nice looking sets of dice. And I'm a dice fiend, as I think many of us are. You can never have too many. And I like dice that are bold and that are but functional and readable. So I have this set of really nice kind of powder blue and gold ones. So it's more of a yellow. I just thought these were such a nice color. One of these days I'll do like a review of my dice. If you want to see that, you let me know. I'll just get out all my nice dice sets and kind of go through my favorite ones and what those look like, and maybe where I got them from, if I can remember. But I think sharing our dice collections might be a fun thing we can do. I got these kind of toxic green ones. These were just kind of for fun. They're so bright and gaudy. But once again, the black numbers on them are just bold enough where they stand out really well, especially on the D20, where people go small on the numbers, and I hate it. These have very large numbers on them that you can read pretty far away if it rolls across the table. And then the last ones were kind of my silly set, which... Oh, my white balance is off. This is my silly set. They're little blood spatter dice. They're just white dice with nice black bold numbers on them, and they just covered them in these, like, in blood spatters. But they'll be fun for playing games with, at least. So those are from... dicegoblin.co.uk. They had so many. I think my sister bought some because I had to go back and was like, these guys have the nicest dice here. I think my brother bought some and my sister bought some as well. Maybe she got them from somewhere else, but my brother definitely got some, which was fun to see, and just to kind of help promote a company who I think made some great product, at least. The other set of dice that I got are these dice. These are my fancy pants dice. This plugs in and these charge. And these dice, when you roll them, they have flashing LED lights on them. Absolutely ridiculous. Completely unnecessary. But they had them for what I can only say is an absolute steal. Because some of those, if you look online or on some of the Kickstarters that do LED dice, it's very expensive, and they had them. And the guys who made them, it was a bunch of old theatre techs who had, you know, with the theatre industry having gone into the tank, basically, during the pandemic, they'd gotten together and put some of their tech skills together, and it was nice to support at least former young artists. Hopefully, you know, we can help out, you know, smaller companies doing that kind of thing. So it was really fun. As soon as he said the price, I was like, oh, I have to have those. So that was, I was expecting it to be like 50 or 60 quid, maybe more. And when he said what it was, I was like, yes. So they got me on that. They boomed me. They're just fun and very silly, but I really like them. So that's the kind of stuff that I was buying, little bits and pieces. I did go back to Nuts Publishing because Florence said he'd bring his laptop and show me some of the artworks and things of some other games that they had upcoming. So it was really nice to see really the depths of which they're going to try to, I don't know, make their games look nice, frankly. Because there's a lot of war games out there that, well, you know, war game maps have looked similar for the past 40 years because we love our functionality. But every time, you know, you'd see a Rick Barber map, everyone's like, oh, it's amazing, oh, we love it. Because it has an element of beauty to it. And I think Nuts are really trying to bring more of that to wargaming, of like, why can't our games look as nice as the rest of the board games at this convention? And, you know, he's not wrong. But whilst I was there, Florence showed me Mini Rogue, which is like a solo game or a co-op. I play this with my son. Little kind of a 9-card dungeon that you go through, fight a bad guy, go down a level, you go through it again, the things are harder or different bad guy at the end, and you have to go through it a number of times as you delve through the floors of the dungeon to get the big bad guy at the end. I bought it there, and I got all the little mini expansions and promos and stuff. And I have played it since with my son, and he loves it and has asked me to play it more. So it's a fun little light game. My son's 8, if that's any reference to you, but he generally gets it. You know, move in an area, roll some dice, resolve what it is, make some choices, things like that. It's a simple game, takes about an hour, but it's really fun, and it's, again, great artwork, great little theme, and that's his I think that's his first kind of generic fantasy style game, so maybe we can get a bit further there and do some more fantasy stuff later. The other things that we did is we visited PSC Games, Plastic Soldier Company. Their board game division was there, and that was a company I was very excited to see because they don't normally come over to the US. They have distributors over here, but it's rare to see them. They had prototypes of Rome Total War, and they walked us through some of what they're doing with it. It's still in development, so I think there's changes coming, but the stuff that they showed us was extremely cool and had a lot of the feeling that you get in the computer game they had in the board game version. And they were showing there's a number of different variants where you can, when you do a battle, you can simply roll the dice to resolve it, or you can do a more complicated and more time-consuming card-based conflict resolution. Or they said, and I hope this comes to fruition, at some point they're going to have it so that you have like a tactical miniatures and a tactical board to actually resolve stuff. And I'd asked them if they were going to make a line of 50mm Ancients miniatures, and they did not have any information on that, but I really hope that that's something that comes to fruition, because I love their miniatures, and if they did 50mm Ancients, I'd be the first one in line. Especially if you could tie it into a campaign based on that. Oh, anyway, the game itself, just as a board game, looked really interesting. The way that you have, there was, you know, different factions or civilizations, and they have different tech trees, and you know, it's about growing. And the one thing that I really am hopeful about that game, and something that they hit on, is that you get victory points from winning battles and winning them extremely well, which incentivizes you to go and do those things. Whereas a lot of ancient civilization kind of board games, in kind of that niche, often come down to just an economic victory, which is fine, as long as that's what we get into, but like, we're all here to fight the wars and do the battles. And that one rewards you for doing the battles. You still have to be able to sustain that with an economy, but you get victory points through doing your battles. So I really hope that that's a game where it rewards you for being aggressive and being a military power, and it's not just going to be like, you'll lose to the guy who's sat in the corner building factories the whole time. Which, that's always kind of a downer in those kinds of games. But I have high hopes from what they showed us that that's very, very viable. So that was very exciting. And also, at PSC Games, they were demoing Blitzkrieg, and they were demoing Caesar, both of which are very fun. But they also had the newest one in that series. A prototype of it is called Dogfight. It is a World War I dogfighting game, and it's this, you know, draw your chips from a bag, put them behind a screen, but what you do is you simultaneously choose one and reveal them, and those are your air maneuvers that you do. Basically, the game is this, it's a circle with some kind of loop-de-loops in it, and you're moving that distance, and your enemy's moving a distance, and then you're trying to get in range to get behind them, or they overtake and get behind you, or you do a loop-de-loop, and you can kind of flank people, and then get shots on them based on your range of spaces that are on the board, and then you do that much damage. You're just trying to shoot them out of the sky. It's a very, very quick playing game, quicker than the other two in the series. I think our first game was like 5 minutes, and then our second game was like 2.5. I was not very good at it. But then we played a third game, and it went on a bit longer, so we were a bit more cagey and kind of figured it out. And I think we got through more rounds of it, which was nice to see. But my brother, who doesn't play all of these war games, he really enjoyed it. I mean, and what I say by that is we played one game, and I could have been done at that point. And he was like, oh, do you want to play again? And so we played again. And then he was like, do you want to play again? I'm like, yes, let's do it. So that to me was a really good indication that he had fun doing it. It didn't overstay its welcome for what it was, and it'll be a great addition to that series as well. So keep an eye out for that. It's called Dogfight. I tried to look it up on BGG, and there wasn't anything on there, but there might be now, at this point, or coming very soon, but it's not designed by Paolo Mori, it's designed by someone else. But because it was a prototype, there was no information on the box as to who designed it. There wasn't a rule book or anything like that, so I don't know who designed it, so whoever did, kudos to you. But we did, you know, they had it all on display, and me being nosy, I opened the little prototype box and we pilfered. There's a whole bunch of other planes that you can use with different stats, and we used some of those as well. That was very fun. That was a really nice experience to go and do that too. And then that day I went back, let's see, oh, I was trying to get a hold of Kingmaker. So, if you don't know, it is called, and now I don't remember it. Okay. I'm gonna figure out who it was. But there's a company, gosh, is it? This is so dumb. This was like a whole thing, because I thought it was a different company, but it's not. Kingmaker, the old Avalon Hill game, is getting a second edition. And Alan showed us, I took my brother, and we actually met with Blue Tweezers. And if you don't know Blue Tweezers, by the way, go Blue Tweezers on YouTube. He does a lot of solitaire wargame playthroughs / tutorials. Incredible wargame content, extremely helpful. 10 out of 10 would recommend that channel. Indeed, if you're a subscriber and you meet him in person, you get yourself some blue tweezers. So I appreciate that very much. But we all kind of pinned down Kingmaker, and Alan kind of walked us through the changes that they're making, because it is a second edition. It is not the same game, but it still has that iconic board. It's just tidied up a bit, apparently. Again, I've never played it, but my father-in-law's got it at his house, used to play it all the time. I know a lot of you guys have played it over the years. But he was walking us through, you know, it used to be a game that would take a very long time. The alliances were usually pretty arbitrary and very unstable because there was no incentive to stay in them or to not screw people over. And it could go on for a long time, and some things were a little bit untidy. And they've tidied all those things up, just kind of cleaned it up at the edges. They've added a prestige or victory point system to it, as well as the regular victory conditions. So it can still end the way that it usually did, or it can end through accruing all of these prestige points which come from winning battles and getting titles, offices of parliament, things like that, controlling areas, having a number of cathedrals. I think that was that game anyway. Having like being the archbishop and all that kind of stuff. So it can be a game that doesn't go 7 hours. It can be a game that goes, 2 or 3. And so it's playable, like, set up, teach in an evening, and it can be done. And it's not going to drag on forever. And he was just going on and on about all the different changes. And I'm sat there just... It looks mouth-wateringly good. Genuinely. And I, again, never played the original, but this one looks so fun. And he was just talking about all this cool stuff. And then, the best bit is he was like, oh, we're designing a solo mode as well. Which is great news. And I was like, oh, so like how's a solo mode going to work with this? And he was like, well, the solo mode doesn't work with this second edition. It only works with the original first edition, which we've printed on the back. So it's going to be a double-sided map with the original Kingmaker on the map and all the components and rules to play it how you used to play it, with a solo mode for that, and the new version on the other side with new components and, that can maybe be a little bit more time friendly. So I thought to myself, this game looks incredible, but you're going to include the original and a solo mode for the original? I mean, this game is going to sell so much. Like, it's coming to Kickstarter, I think they said in like August or September. I will be the first one in line for that, because I've always wanted to play Kingmaker, but it looks so old and crusty, and the rulebook was horrible. And I'd heard, you hear things where like, it was amazing, I got great memories, but like, it's a little bit unwieldy. I think what they're going to do with it is make it, like, really bring it into a new generation, and for it, I really hope that this is something. Plus, it's Wars of the Roses, and what's not to like? So that was something that was extremely exciting, that I'm looking forward to immensely, that I found out about UK Games Expo as well. But I think that's, generally speaking, there's a million people that I met. I will say that. Thank you, everyone who like came and said hi, and I tried to take pictures of as many people as possible and tweet some of those things out. People from all over, people from as far away as Australia who had come to the Games Expo. I was able to meet them, and it was so neat. I met guys from South Africa, people from England, people from all over Europe. It was just really nice meeting so many different people who love gaming and who love wargaming as well. And it was just a really fun time. And it wasn't as busy as I thought it was going to be, is the other thing that I would say. I went on the Friday and they were like, oh, Saturday's going to be humming, it'll be way busier. It wasn't. It was about the same level as busy. And I've been to Gen Con, and Gen Con's kind of gross on a Saturday. I actually don't like it very much. You can't move for the people there. But the Games Expo was actually really nicely spaced. It was busy, and there were some busy parts of it. There was a lot of people, but everything was spaced out enough where it wasn't just like bumping into people constantly rubbing shoulders. And you could you were able to sit down and demo basically anything that you wanted. a lot of people were like taking time slots for demos, and you had to sign up for some of those, but there was, you know, there was room for those things. We've been to conventions where I was like, oh, I want to demo this, and they're like, it's Thursday, and they're like, we don't have any demos for the next 4 days. And I'm like, okay, cool. Glad I asked. The other big feature at Games Expo that's really neat is this huge bring and buy, where you just bring games you want to sell, you hand them off, list a price for them, and then they put them on shelves, and these consignment shelves, and so you can then go in, and it's just like this bazaar of everything, and it's organized in miniatures games, war games, Euro games, American games, card games, family games, and it was really fun to just nose around. If I lived there, or if I had some means of transportation, I could easily have spent a lot of money there. There was just some really nice old games that were there, or games that were like a little bit rarer. Some of it was priced kind of what you would expect. Maybe they'd seen a BGG price and maybe knocked 10% off. Some of it was priced to move, though. Even from like some of the non-war games, it was just a really fun way to see some things that you don't normally see, and to kind of, you know, have a poke around at some things. It was very fun, and you got to time it though, because there's always a long line. It's very busy. There happened to be no queue, and so then me and my brothers just like ran around to go in. But that was a blast as well. Good way to kind of sell some games and buy some games on the cheap, or fund your petrol going to and from the convention. I don't know, but that was really neat to see too. But all in all, I had an excellent experience. It was really fun doing a convention with my siblings as well. So that was kind of an experience in and of itself, where there was a bunch of us and seeing all the different interests that they have and things like that. That was fun. But as a convention itself, whilst there wasn't a ton of wargaming, there was a lot of miniatures. There's X-Wing tournament. There was Star Wars Legion going on. All the different card game tournaments. But a lot of just board gaming demos and buying and selling stuff as well. I had a really good time. I would do it again if I had the opportunity. But you know, living here in the US, it's rare that that's probably going to happen anytime soon. But you know, maybe I'll time my trips to coincide with that in the future, because the weather was very mild as well, which also is nice, because walking around Gen Con first week of August is very sweaty and gross, is what I would say. But it was very pleasant, the UK Games Expo. The weather's much milder there anyway, but it was just fun to kind of do that with my family. Buy some cool dice. You gotta get dice at whatever convention you're at. A little game, but played a whole bunch, met a whole bunch of nice people, and people that I kind of knew online, and you get to meet them in real life. That was really fun. So I'm very grateful I had the opportunity to go. If you're in the UK or if you're in Europe and it's not too big a trip, I would highly recommend that you go. And you can just go for one day, you can go for a couple. It's very easy. You can buy tickets at the door. It's not like Gen Con where you gotta like sign up. It's like a whole thing. Or it takes forever. So it was really pleasant from start to finish, and I cannot recommend it to you enough. If it's local to you, give it a go. Because, you know, if you do just one day and you don't like it, it was, I think, one day was like $20, $27, something. It wasn't even very much. Like, you pay over, it's cost $120, $130 for a ticket to Gen Con for a few days. You can get one day pass to UK Games that costs almost nothing. And you get a cool little lanyard. Here's my little Friday ticket, my Saturday ticket. It was a really good time. So anyway, that's enough of me rambling about UK Games Expo. Appreciate you very much for tuning in. If you've been, let me know what you think about it. Or if you want to go, ask any questions and I will try to help out at least. But very much thanks for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.